So it's March of 2023, and I was simply just walking to my Chinese class. I was a Chinese kid, however, my parents coming from Southeast Asia and their parents coming from China, and I was in America. The difference being is that compared to the other kids at my school who were Chinese and also going to the Chinese class with me, is that I didn't have any advantage. I wasn't spoken any dialects or Mandarin itself when I was little, so I was just there in the class, sat around with other kids who clearly had an advantage over me. So I honestly thought that maybe one day it would be cool to be like them and be able to speak their language and not forget it and pass it down to the next generation. But unfortunately, I've tried many times before, and due to this, I just gave up. So the class started, and my teacher got the syllabus, made us take out some vocabulary sheets that we had to fill in before. Then after that, she went over some sentence structures that she taught us to do, and then class ended. But then, as class ended, my teacher stopped me for a moment, and she told me, "Your assignment doesn't look that great because it looks like that you just translated from English directly into Chinese." So I politely asked, "Oh, then how could I make my assignment better?" And then she told me, "You have to watch more TV shows and content in Mandarin." My brain was kind of a bit confused, saying, "Oh, but haven't we done that before? We've tried watching content, but honestly, it's just boring. I'm not interested in those TV dramas where they have a hot male guy and a hot female lead, and they just was do random stuff together." So after that conversation, I just went on for the rest of my day until the last period of my day where I worked as a TA in the office at my school. And during this time, I actually had an encounter with many Chinese parents. Many of them had broken English and couldn't speak Chinese. But this day was different because when I was talking to a Chinese parent trying to use my broken Chinese that I learned from classes and 14 years of learning, I struggled a lot until finally one of the people I've worked with, who was also a translator, came to my rescue and helped me. I probably should have been grateful, but deep down, I was kind of angry, saying, "Why couldn't I do this too?" It also didn't help that one of the people who were side eyeing me said, "Thank goodness a translator came." I was kind of pissed off. So I went home, not really super angry at the situation, but it was enough to sort of give me back that determination of learning Chinese for maybe like the millionth time. So when getting home, I looked up online, naturally on YouTube, on how to learn Chinese. But the difference also being was I found something different. It was a video named by Mandarin Blueprint, and this video was sort of a master guide on how to learn Chinese. It was a pretty long video, but I really didn't care at the least on how long. I just wanted to learn Chinese. So I clicked it. I wasn't expecting much actually. But then at around 4 minutes and 47 seconds of the video, the narrator said this: "Textbooks, tutors, and classrooms were a waste of time." This was probably one of the first times I've been ever told that. Even though my teacher had already told me that you should get more input, I had never heard from a person that these three things that I so studied for the past 14 years of my life, or 12 years since I was 17 at the time, were just a waste of time. But I was also kind of suspicious because being conditioned to something for 12 years kind of makes you attached to it. So I was given sort of a choice. I could either listen to the advice of this unorthodox guy who is also white and a foreigner and probably didn't really trust him, or two, I could just go back the way I was, listen to my teacher, watch some TV shows alongside with doing some of the good vocabulary and grammar drills. So what did I choose? Yes, correct. I chose the Mandarin Blueprint guy. I continued watching for the rest of his video, and at the end, there it was. I had just reignited my passion to learn Chinese. I had also started learning languages consistently every day, around 80% through listening and reading things I liked, while 20% were flashcards using a software called Anki, although I'm no longer doing Anki with Mandarin, as I'm now learning Spanish in a different way. If I kept the mindset of consuming content as only a supplement, that would have made me slow and inconsistent. It was like the first time that I've known this. No one has ever told me this. And it was sort of like a shock to me, being like, oh my goodness, doesn't anybody know about this? So excitedly, I decided to rejoin into the Mandarin learning was a sphere. And just like an old warrior, going back to the depths of the castle, getting his old sword, and being ready to fight again. There it is. 14 years of my Mandarin learning journey. And during this time, of the 12 years, I've been pretty much making no progress at all until I discovered the input method, which many people online were talking about, but was extremely new to me. And then I made lots of progress. And by progress, I mean being able to start my own Mandarin channel, passing the HSK 6, no, HSK 4. HSK 6 is actually the highest one, being a native level, and being able to just consume content and enjoy it without having to burn myself out.
天堑之矛的星辰已经被点亮了，这意味着。
So I'll give some advice on the beginner stage. Although I don't have a lot of advice to give in it, I would just recommend please do not spend 12 years learning and just staring at textbooks and only doing it for like a couple times and periods during those months and weeks. You have to be consistent. And the other thing I want to tell you is from day one, you have to consume content and get input right away, since that's going to be the biggest constraint you will have for pretty much the rest of your language learning career. And starting from day one is going to be very powerful to you. Even though you may not understand it at all, it's still going to be at least useful to you, so you know at least how the language sounds, and you could probably pick up some very basic stuff by just listening to more content. Now, what about the intermediate level, which I'm at right now? I only have two things actually for it right now. One being the intermediate plateau, and two being output. I'll start with the intermediate plateau. The intermediate plateau has been classified in the language learning spheres as a point in language learning where you make a lot of progress when you're a beginner, but you suddenly plateau as an intermediate, and it feels like you're making no progress until you finally reach advanced levels and keep going. However, this is mostly a lie because you're still making progress, that's one. But the reason why people feel like they're on a plateau is because they don't really have any more beginner gains and they have to go and actually push themselves harder and consume harder content and also content that they actually enjoy. So, my advice for people that are in the stage right now is don't stop learning and keep pushing yourself to consume harder content. This also applies for you beginners because you, just like me, yes, just like me, for 12 years, I've been stuck at a plateau because I never pushed myself. And only until I decided I will follow the advice of someone that I may or may not have trusted and actually went into real life Chinese stuff that I actually made some progress. Now, about output. Output actually is something that many people in the input community actually don't really like. Many people say that you shouldn't output until you've gotten really good at language. But they also say it's because you shouldn't make mistakes and these mistakes are going to scar you for the rest of your life. Well, maybe they would, but honestly, there's not a lot of evidence from the other side where not speaking from day one and picking until how many hours you've listened to would actually make you speak like a native. So, in my experience, I've already been speaking a lot since I was small because during when I was small, enrolling in my first Chinese class, they naturally made us speak and made us do output activities. So, how would I approach speaking? So I actually went on sort of a quote unquote silent period, what people recommended me. I tried it out, but like I said, I live in a heavily Chinese community, so it was impossible to avoid. So I still spoke, but I also was getting a lot of input. In my experience, like I said again, I find that if you get a lot of input, you could probably drown out those mistakes that you may have scarred with you by just listening more and knowing what is right and wrong and getting some corrections here and there. For more specificities on accent, my Chinese accent isn't the best to say, but I'm also not very concerned about accents because accents are actually pretty funny, cute, and they're honestly like a nice part of your personality. It also makes me more unique because it would be funny if you heard a Chinese guy and he suddenly started speaking in a American accent. So, in order to improve your accent, I would just say improve it to the point where people can understand you without having it to be a very troubling thing for them. So just improve your accent to the point where people can properly understand you. And if you actually want to improve your accent, go ahead by all means. I'm not the guy to tell you to stop. I just like my accent how it is. But maybe in the future, if I get more interested, I would do it. But back to the point. The best way I found that into improving your accent would be something I call, and many people have called before, corrective reading, where you get a piece of text and then you would read it out loud, and then a native would then come to you, or they could be at you at the same time and then correct you. You could either make a recording and after that send it to them and they'll tell you how to correct your reading and then you repeat after them, or you could do it at the same time with them. I would prefer same time, but I've been trying to look for people and with not a lot of success to do real time calls. So I also just do the old method of just sending them recordings of myself, having them reevaluate, and just correcting myself. And also, some people, like I've mentioned earlier again, they don't think that outputting earlier is a good idea. But I kind of beg to differ because you also have to find a point where you have to go out and output and make the leap of faith. And who knows? If you make this leap of faith, you could probably change a person's life. You could probably make a new friend, meet the love of your life. And yeah, so we've got a road to explore. 我们的旅程刚刚开始。